You hit 60, and suddenly the panic sets in. You look at your retirement accounts, you look at the rising cost of groceries, you look at inflation eating away at your purchasing power, and you think there is absolutely no way this is going to be enough money to last the rest of your life. So you start looking for alternatives. You start thinking about real estate. You start thinking about buying a rental property to generate some passive income. It sounds like the perfect plan. Buy a house, put a tenant in it, and let them pay off the mortgage while you collect a nice, fat check every single month. I have seen homeowners make this exact move right on the edge of retirement. And I am telling you right now, it can become a total nightmare. The idea of passive income is a great concept. Who does not want money rolling in while they sleep? But being a landlord is rarely passive. It is a second job. And taking on a second job when you are supposed to be winding down your career is a recipe for absolute exhaustion and financial disaster. Let us break down the myth. The myth is that real estate always goes up, rents always cover the mortgage, and tenants always respect your property. We have been conditioned to believe that buying bricks and mortar is the safest place for our money. We watch television shows where a couple buys a rundown shack, throws some paint on the walls, installs some cheap laminate flooring, and suddenly they are making $5,000 a month in pure profit. That is television entertainment. That is not financial reality. In reality, a water heater bursts at 2 in the morning on a holiday weekend, and you are the one getting the phone call. You are the one who has to wake up, find an emergency plumber, and shell out $2,000 for the repair. If you hire a property management company to handle those late night calls, they are going to take 10% of your gross rent right off the top, plus leasing fees, plus maintenance markups, plus renewal fees. Suddenly, that passive income is not looking so passive, and it is definitely not looking like a lot of income. It starts to feel like a slow bleed of your hard-earned cash. Now, I know what you were thinking. You were thinking, well, I will just buy a nice house in a good neighborhood and I will thoroughly screen my tenants. I will only rent to people with great credit scores, steady jobs, and spotless background checks. I will be the smart landlord who avoids all the common pitfalls. The math looks great on paper, but here is where this blows up in the real world. Even good tenants lose their jobs. Even good tenants get divorced. Even good tenants experience sudden medical emergencies that wipe out their savings. And when they cannot pay the rent, you still have to pay the mortgage. You still have to pay the property taxes. You still have to pay the insurance premiums. And you cannot just kick them out the next day. Evictions can take months, and during that entire time, you are bleeding money. You are paying legal fees, court costs, and losing rent, all while the property sits occupied by someone who is not paying you a single dime. The psychological toll this takes on a person in their 60s is immense. You are supposed to be enjoying your golden years, traveling, or spending time with your grandchildren. Instead, you are lying awake at night worrying about whether the people living in your investment property are destroying the hardwood floors or sneaking in unauthorized pets. You worry about liability. What if a tenant slips and falls on an icy walkway? What if they sue you? You can buy umbrella insurance, but that is just another expense eating into your profit margins. The stress of managing human beings and a physical structure is something you simply cannot put a price tag on. Think about the physical deterioration of the asset itself. Houses do not just sit there looking pretty. They are constantly fighting a losing battle against nature, weather, and basic human wear and tear. A tenant does not care if the gutters are overflowing and rotting the fascia boards. A tenant does not care if the HVAC filter has not been changed in a year, which forces the motor to burn out prematurely. You have to constantly monitor these things. If you do not monitor them, a simple maintenance item costing $50 turns into a catastrophe costing $5,000. And if you are trying to relax on a beach or visit your family across the country, you cannot effectively monitor your property. Let us look at a real-world example to see exactly how the verified math plays out. We will call them Mark and Susan. They are both 60 years old. They have worked hard their entire lives. They have $800,000 sitting in a retirement account. They own their primary home outright, which is worth $500,000. They have zero debt, their kids are grown, and they are looking forward to traveling and relaxing. But Mark and Susan decide they want more cash flow for retirement. They do not want to touch the principal of their $800,000. So they look to real estate. They find a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in a decent middle-class neighborhood. The purchase price is $350,000. They do not want to drain their retirement accounts completely, so they decide to put down 20%. That is $70,000. They also have to pay closing costs, appraisal fees, inspection fees, and loan origination fees, which run about $10,000. So they are $80,000 out of pocket on day one. They take out a mortgage for the remaining $280,000. At a 7% interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage, their monthly principal and interest payment is $1,862. Now, let us add in the other fixed costs that never go away. Property taxes are roughly $3,600 a year, which adds $300 a month. Landlord insurance is another, $1,200 a year, which is $100 a month. Their total fixed monthly payment before a single thing goes wrong is $2,262. Mark and Susan do their research. They look at comparable rentals in the area, and they figure out they can rent this house out for $2,600 a month. They sit down at the kitchen table and do the quick math. $2,600 in rent minus $2,262 in fixed costs leaves them with $338 a month in positive cash flow. $338. That is $4,056 a year. They think this is fantastic. A $4,056 return on an $80,000 initial investment is roughly a 5% cash-on-cash return. They think this is better than a standard savings account. Plus, the house will appreciate in value over time, right? They think they have found the holy grail of retirement income. But wait, the math is incomplete. They are missing the hidden costs that eat amateur landlords alive. We have not factored in vacancy. We have not factored in routine repairs. We have not factored in massive capital expenditures like a brand new roof, a new heating and cooling system, or a cracked foundation. The industry standard, if you want to be safe and realistic, is to set aside 5% of gross rent for vacancy, 5% for repairs, and 5% for capital expenditures. 5% of $2,600 is $130. So you need to subtract $130 for vacancy, $130 for repairs, and $130 for capital expenditures every single month. That is a total of $390 a month in reserves that you must hold back just to keep the property functioning properly. Mark and Susan were only projecting $338 a month in positive cash flow. When you subtract the $390 for essential reserves, they are now mathematically losing $52 a month. And this assumes they are managing the property entirely by themselves. This assumes Mark is driving over there to fix leaky faucets, patch drywall, and unclog toilets. If they decide they do not want to be on call 24 hours a day and they hire a property manager for 10% of the gross rent, that is another $260 a month gone. Now they are losing $312 every single month. They bought a rental property at 60 to generate passive income, and instead, they bought a liability that bleeds cash. They are subsidizing somebody else's housing out of their own pocket. But it gets worse. Let us talk about the psychological barriers, the tax implications, and the sheer lack of liquidity. When you pull that $80,000 out of your savings or sell stocks to get the down payment, you might trigger massive capital gains taxes. If you pull it from a traditional 401k or IRA, every single penny is taxed as ordinary income. That $80,000 withdrawal could easily bump Mark and Susan into a much higher tax bracket, meaning they actually have to withdraw $110,000 from their retirement accounts just to clear the $80,000 they need after taxes. This creates a terrible cascade effect on their other finances, potentially making more of their Social Security benefits taxable and increasing their Medicare premiums. Furthermore, let us talk about depreciation. When you own a rental property, the IRS allows you to deduct depreciation from your taxes over 27.5 years. It sounds like a great benefit at first, but when you eventually sell the property, the IRS wants that money back. This is called depreciation recapture, and it is taxed at a hefty 25%. Many amateur landlords get a massive, nasty surprise when they sell their rental properties in their 70s, because they did not plan for the depreciation recapture tax bomb. They thought they were building wealth, but the tax code strips a massive chunk of their profit away at the exact moment they need the money the most. And what happens if Mark or Susan has a sudden medical emergency and needs cash fast? What if one of them needs expensive long-term care? They cannot just sell the master bedroom to pay a hospital bill. Real estate is a highly illiquid asset. Selling a house takes months of preparation, staging, and showings. It involves paying 6% in real estate agent commissions, and it comes with a mountain of stress. If they have to sell that $350,000 house quickly, a 6% commission is $21,000 right off the top. Plus closing costs, plus repairs requested by the new buyer, plus holding costs while it sits vacant on the market. They could easily lose $30,000 or $40,000 just trying to exit the investment. All that equity they thought they had vanishes into thin air the moment they try to liquidate. This is the friction nobody talks about at those expensive real estate seminars. They sell you the dream of wealth, but they leave out the reality of transaction costs and tax penalties. So, what is the solution? If buying a physical rental property at 60 is a potential nightmare, how do you actually generate the income you need for a comfortable, stress-free retirement? The solution comes down to three clear steps. Step 1. Optimize the assets you already have before you buy anything new. Instead of buying a second house, look at the house you already own. Mark and Susan have a paid-off house worth $500,000. They could downsize. If they sell that house and buy a smaller, more manageable place for $300,000, they free up $200,000 in tax-free cash, assuming they meet the primary residence exclusion rules for capital gains. That is $200,000 they can invest right now without taking on a single drop of new debt. Step 2. Invest in highly liquid, truly passive, income-producing assets. If you absolutely want exposure to the real estate market without the late-night phone calls, look at real estate investment trusts, commonly known as REITs. You buy them exactly like a stock. You can sell them exactly like a stock. By law, they pay out at least 90% of their taxable income as dividends to shareholders. You get the cash flow, you get the real estate exposure, and you never have to fix a single toilet. Or look at dividend-paying index funds. Look at United States Treasury bonds. Look at high-yield savings accounts. Right now, you can get a guaranteed return on cash with zero risk and absolute total liquidity. Why would you take on the headaches, the liability, and the stress of a rental property for a negative return when you can sit on your couch, do absolutely nothing, and earn a solid, predictable yield? Step 3. Manage your sequence of returns risk. This is the terrifying risk that the stock market crashes right when you retire and start pulling money out. If you are forced to sell stocks when they are down 30% just to buy groceries, you permanently destroy your portfolio's ability to recover. To protect against this, you need a cash buffer. You need 2 to 3 years of living expenses sitting in cash, certificates of deposit, or short-term bonds. This allows you to ride out a stock market downturn without having to sell a single share at a loss. If Mark and Susan keep their $800,000 invested in a broadly diversified portfolio, and they use a safe withdrawal rate of 4%, that generates $32,000 a year in income. It is completely passive. It is highly liquid. And nobody is ever going to call them on Thanksgiving morning to complain about a broken garbage disposal. This is about protecting your peace of mind. Retirement is not the time to take on massive leverage and start a second career as a stressed-out landlord. It is the time to simplify your life, reduce your obligations, and enjoy the wealth you have spent decades building. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, what about appreciation? What if the house goes up in value by $50,000 in the next 5 years? What about the long-term wealth building aspect of real estate? Yes, real estate generally appreciates over the long term, but you cannot eat appreciation. You cannot pay for your groceries with equity. You cannot pay your utility bills with the theoretical value of your property. You can only access that equity by borrowing against it, which means taking on more debt in retirement, or by selling the house, which brings us right back to the massive illiquidity problem and the transaction costs. And listen, markets can go down. We have all seen it happen. If a major economic recession hits, that $350,000 house could easily drop to $300,000 or less. Now, Mark and Susan are severely underwater on their investment. They are mathematically losing cash every single month, and they literally cannot sell the property without bringing a massive check to the closing table just to pay off the mortgage. I have seen homeowners make the tragic mistake of chasing yield without truly understanding the deep structural risks involved. They fall in love with the romanticized idea of being a real estate investor because it sounds prestigious at dinner parties. But the reality behind the scenes is often a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress, a lot of unexpected bills, and little actual usable profit. Do not let the fear of running out of money push you into a bad investment. Keep your finances simple. Keep your assets liquid. Protect your peace of mind above all else. You work too hard to spend your 60s fixing someone else's plumbing. You worked too hard to spend your golden years playing collection agency. You worked too hard to hand over a massive percentage of your profits to a property manager who does not even care about your long-term success. So please, really think before you sign that mortgage. If you are still determined to buy physical real estate, I highly recommend you start small and run the absolute worst-case scenario numbers. Do not base your financial future on best-case projections. Assume that the house will sit completely empty for 3 straight months. Assume that the water heater will fail on day 1 and that you will have to pay $2,000 immediately. Assume that property taxes will jump significantly after the sale. If the numbers still make sense after you model all of those absolute worst-case scenarios, and if you have plenty of extra liquid cash sitting in a bank account to cover those emergencies without breaking a sweat, then maybe it is an option for you. But for the vast majority of people nearing retirement, the risk simply outweighs the potential reward. The juice is not worth the squeeze. The financial stress is not worth the tiny margin of potential profit. Keep your money safe, keep your life simple, and enjoy your retirement. This video is for general educational purposes only. It does not constitute individualized tax, legal, insurance, investment, or real estate advice. The numbers, scenarios, and calculations we discussed are completely hypothetical and used strictly for illustrative and educational purposes. You must always verify your specific financial situation, evaluate your own risk tolerance, and consult with properly qualified professionals, such as a certified financial planner or a tax attorney, before making any major investment decisions or purchasing real estate.